and thank you for joining me on the show today. This is the Now Talks, a collection of inspiring personal stories and leadership lessons from some of the world's most iconic leaders. It is the weekly podcast for women in leadership, brought to you by Nations of Women. My name is Dr. Tina Alton, and I'm your host for today and the coming weeks. Yes, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you wherever you have joined us from. My name is Tina Alton. I'm the CEO and president here at Nations of Women. For those of you that don't know me, I have the honor and the privilege and the delight of having one woman who is my friend, my sister, my confidant, and so much more in between. And she is none other than Dr. Linda Wallace, all the way from California, United States. Thank you so much, Linda, for saying yes to joining us today.
Oh, it's an honor, Tina. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. So I want us to, kick off really looking at your journey as a leader, right? And so by way of introduction, I would love for you to just introduce yourself to us in your journey to becoming a leader, a woman of impact, a woman of influence, a woman, called to the nations. It's like you're a mighty pack of how do you call it? Those power shots they have where they like you take it and literally you have your vitamins, you have your everything you need is packed in there. And I see you as this mighty oak, as you are. So what has been your journey to becoming a leader? Just by way of introducing yourself.
Tina, I don't think that I really started out thinking of myself as a leader. I don't think any of us do. I think you just evolve. And in the process of living, you discover your capacity to influence others, to serve others, most of all, to love others. So I think that those are some of the key ingredients. It's just growing in your capacity to love others. And when you do that, it opens opportunities for you to, I guess, lead as you're defining leadership. So it isn't like a destination or an outcome. I think it's just in the course of living life and going through life circumstances. And obviously, the first person that you're learning to lead in that is yourself, and you're learning to love. So I think that your leadership evolves out of your capacity, your ability to love yourself. And then from that, you can love others.
Wow, thank you so much. What I want us to kind of like focus a little bit more deeply is you've talked about leadership is not a destination. It comes out of, living life and first of all, leading yourself. And to be able to lead yourself well comes from a place of loving yourself. And there is so much talk about self-love, 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 do whatever you want. And so I feel like that, talk of self-love is actually generating almost like a sense of selfishness, because I've got to look at me first. I've got to, me. Or there's the other side of self-love is I've got to do yoga, I've got to do Pilates, I've got to do this, or I've got to eat greens. But what really, 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 when we think about leadership, when we think about leading our communities and our nations or our businesses, in terms of that self-love, can you help us to give us a much more wholesome picture of what that really is?
Well, I think that, I think we're using that language of self-love because we haven't found better language yet, or I think we're discovering better language, but we're not the origin of love. God is the origin of love, the creator, based on what your belief system is, what your faith values are, what your truth is in that space. I think that defining or or coming to terms with the source of love and how that's expressed is really like that beginning point. And for me, being a follower of Christ has become my reality and truth as the source of love. And just walking out in life, um, unveiling what that looks like and how you can recognize when love shows up in the midst of adversity, in the midst of challenge, in the midst of change. So it's not about the self love as if you create that or you initiate that, but it's about just embracing every opportunity where you can be more accepting of your limitations and also accepting what you're able to also accepting your ability to increase in your capacity to love. Hope that makes sense.
It does, it does, it does. This is so good. So if we think about, many of us call you Mama Linda because you're a mama to all of us, right? So what is Mama Linda's practical ways of, you talked about, of course, we're not the origin of love, and you can't really create self-love. Love comes from accepting that, hey, maybe I have that limitation, or also that I can increase my capacity. So in a practical sense, for those listening or reading, what is maybe one or two ways that, for example, we can look at both, if we take it like a coin, both sides. So practical ways that a woman, a leader, can utilize to help them accept their limitation, because I know that many times it becomes almost like a hindrance. Either we live in, what's the word, like, um not a facade, but where you can't see the reality of something, right? You can't see the reality of it, or you have in your own mind that this is it, and therefore no matter what else anybody sees or what's happening, you're just stuck in that trench of, nope, this is who I am, this is, and so that very limitation becomes almost like a lid on who we are, what we're called to do, what we can do, our capacity, being able to like love on other people, being able to receive other people, because we're just stuck in that place. That's one side. And then the other side is practical ways that we can actually also increase our capacity to then be able to love, receive love, and be, almost like a conductor.
Yeah, I think on the side that you just mentioned about increasing our capacity, I think it's openness. It's just remaining open, um, and then it's just where are you grounded spiritually? What's again your source of love? Where do you draw your love? Where do I draw my love from? My love comes from the place of intimacy in the expression of my relationship with God, my relationship uh, with the one who created me. So I think that keeps my capacity enlarged. I think we implode and we shrink when we don't have a place that we're sustained in love. Yeah. So I think it's spiritual, definitely in that place, um, because we just start shrinking. I think you can shrink if you don't receive, but you also shrink if you're not giving either.
Wow, this is so good. That we shrink when we're not receiving, and we shrink also when we're not given. And you talked about openness is the key to increase our capacity, but many times I come across leaders that are not very keen on being open. And sometimes it could be because, you've kind of like being vulnerable and shared maybe a challenge you have, and then it's taking out. And so I find that some leaders like would gauge or would be guarded. So how if anybody finds themselves in that situation, but then they have a desire, they have a yearning really move past that, what is maybe one or two practical ways that they can look at to help them be more open?
Yeah, I think that you just have to really be intentional about cultivating relationships that contribute to you feeling safe. You know, some people are have capacity for more community than others, but I do think that you need some form of community, some form of relationships that where there's real authenticity and transparency. You know, I have to feel safe with you in order to be able to open up to you, but also I have to be willing to take a risk, to be engaged with someone other than myself. We can't live on an island. We can't live insulated and isolated. We have to interact with people. And I think that the more that we're willing to do that, to take the risk, we are going to be hurt. We might be misunderstood. I mean, that's just part of it. But eventually you come into a place where you do it often enough that you become that person maybe that others are looking for more so rather than what you're looking for. So it can become mutual, I think.
So good. I can't write fast enough. I'm like, this is now like, okay, I need to be able to read my notes again, but I'm just taking so many notes, and I
We were
love what
born
you said.
for relationship. We were born for interaction. Everybody needs somebody,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And I think the more that you are intentional about that, the richer your life can become.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow, 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 wow. So, if we think about, like being intentional about cultivating, relationships with other people, but also the relationship with them is a relationship that makes you feel safe. And I feel like that is a good indicator on actually when I'm with these people, I feel safe, So the big moment you begin to feel that, you can take a risk. The moment you begin to feel that, you can take one more risk and another risk and another risk and another risk. And like I said, eventually we then become that safe space for other people, right?
Yeah.
We then
Yeah.
become a safe space for other people. This is so, so good. So as a leader, as a mama, if there is one thing that the listeners can learn from your life, or those reading can learn from your life, and me particularly, I've been dying to ask you this question. If there is one thing, or maybe two or three, however many you want to bless us with, right, that we could learn from your life, what would that be?
I like to think that I have, and it's always progressive. Keep cultivating, keeping intentional about valuing other people, like putting myself in their place. Like if I were in a particular situation, how would I want to be treated? How would I want to be heard? Or how would I want to be responded to? And I think keeping that top of mind um, helps to navigate and helps to support people. Yeah.
That is so good in terms of I think, not I think, but I do believe that, because I see that so much in you in terms of the intentionality with which you cultivate relationships, the way you steward our hearts and relationships. And no matter how long we go before we speak, the moment we on the phone or chat, it's like there's not been any time missing, right? Because we there is that intentionality on both sides, where we've cultivated that safety and that joy and that love. I love the presence of that person. I love spending time with that person. And so I just think that the foundation to being able to come to that place is, I guess, pausing and then thinking, if I switched shoes, like you say, if I switched shoes with that person, how would I want to be responded to? Right?
Mhm.
How would I want to be responded to? So if you come to a place where perhaps, because we're all quick to judge and all of those things, it's like that pause to think, wow, okay, now if I'm going to cultivate a relationship or trust or whatever with that person,
Yeah.
I pause for a minute and then look at, you know, I've got here, um, how am I valuing that person? How am I seeing that person in that moment? And if it was me,
And I think what's important too, Tina, is to, like you said, you alluded to how we can make snap judgments about people, but we don't know their story. We don't know what shaped them. We don't know what formed them. We don't know what traumatized them. We don't know what influenced them. And I have found if you dig a little deeper, than just the superficial, and people find that you are not judgmental, you are not transactional. I have seen over and over again the hearts of people open up. And then you get a glimpse of, oh, okay, I see their public persona, but hearing their story about what shaped them or what influences them helps you to see people differently. And you're looking for something good. You're not looking for the negative. You're looking for something good that maybe you might like to emulate, maybe that you might find as a value to you, So I think it's just in that approach. They say we receive 25 negative words to every one positive word. And so it's like, can I be the one that would bring a positive word to someone's life to counteract all the negativity that we're confronted by? So I think it's just what is your story? I really want to know the real person that I might be sitting across from, not the persona that you present to me or that I'm presenting to you.
this is so good. Thank you so much, Mama Linda. For those of you listening, we've been talking about Linda's journey to becoming a leader, and she shared with us that leadership for her has been a process of evolving, and as she evolved, she more and more and more discovered, her capacity and her capacity to really love others. And for her, leadership is not a destination. I think for all of us, leadership is not a destination, but it comes, through life. And as we do life, leading ourselves. And of course, to lead yourself well, always, always, always starts from the place of how much do I love myself? And the idea of self-love is not just what I do, but it's in, the very source of love. Whatever you believe in, it is from the source of love, and how that is expressed either through your intimacy in your own private time, whether it's God or whatever it is, but you cultivate love in intimacy. That's always key. You cultivate love from a place of intimacy, and you can't create self-love. You just can't create. You must you make self-love, or you find self-love as you become more and more accepting of who you are and increasing your capacity as who you are as well. And to be a leader of greater impact, greater capacity, you must be willing to open yourself, be open, be willing to take a risk, right? Be willing to take a risk and be intentional about cultivating relationships that provide safety for you. Because I think for all of us as leaders, safety, do I feel safe with you? Right? Do I feel safe with you? Is always a repetitive invitation that keeps me coming back, coming
Yeah,
back, coming back. But the key is you can't receive love if you're not giving love.
that, that's
You
it.
can't, even when you,
Difficult.
yeah, absolutely. Even when you come back, You can't receive love if you're not giving love. And you can't give love if you're not receiving love. So it's a two-way street. It's a
Yeah.
very fine balance, but it all comes as we're intentional about cultivating
I think the importance of that thought, Tina, of the giving and receiving love is that you allow your capacity of giving to outgrow how much you're receiving. Like you're so busy giving, you're not concerned about what you're receiving. I think that you could grow. I think that you could actually live that way. That's one of my goals is I'm so busy giving, I'm not concerned about whether I'm receiving it back or not. So that becomes more of a motivation and a passion than the receiving.
That is true. When we take the focus off of ourselves, then we're able to, expand our capacity. And I think that brings us back to that, real gold nugget you gave us is like we can't be leaders that lead from a place of judgment. We can't judge people because you don't know their story, you don't know what has shaped them. But if you allow yourself the opportunity to cultivate that relationship with them, where you become that safe space for them and they open up, you would get to know a little bit more of their story and you'd be
Absolutely.
able to understand them a little bit more, pour out a little bit more, give a little bit more further forward. But as we do all of these things, the key that Linda has given us is don't be looking for the negative things. Always open your eyes to see beyond there today,
Yes.
beyond there today, and see the potential in their future. And that's, my friend, we're going to have to bring you back, Linda, because I just love talking to you and spending time with you. But I know that anybody listening, this would be so enriching for them that if there's one thing you take away from Linda's life, it is don't judge, don't look for the negative in others. Look beyond there today and see the potential in their future and be a conductor of safe environments for other people. Wow. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you again for
Wow.
saying yes.
You just recap that so beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you again. We really appreciate you. Mhm. And that's all for this week. You've been listening to Dr. Tina Alton with the Now Talks, the weekly podcast for women in leadership, brought to you by Nations of Women. All that remains is for me to say have a fantastic week, stay safe, and reach out if you need any help now at nationsofwomen.com. Until next time, enjoy the pursuit of your potential and remember, now is your time.